I want to just welcome everyone to American Family Insurance DreamBank, where we believe in the transformative power of dreams. I'm Madeline, and I'm thrilled to have you with us today. For those of you that this is your first time at DreamBank, welcome. And for those of you that are familiar with us, welcome back. Here at American Family Insurance, we believe communities are stronger and the future is brighter when people are actively pursuing their dreams. That's why we created DreamBank, an inspirational community destination and digital experience dedicated to dreamers everywhere. From our daily event series to immersive signature programs, there's something for every dreamer. Our always free offerings are designed to help you celebrate the dream journey, overcome obstacles, and stay motivated. I am going to be putting in the chat a link to our handouts that you can download for this event. And so I'll be sending that through in just a moment, and then I'll also bump it back up when we get to the handout section. But I would like to introduce you to Katherine Sanders. She is going to be with us today, and she is a human factors and work systems engineer, and she is going to tell you a little bit more about herself. So I will pass it off to you.
Thank you, Madeline, and hi, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to join us today to talk about dream jobs. I am a human factors and work systems engineer, as Madeline said. And that might seem like a little bit of a weird combination. It's actually a specialty of industrial and systems engineering. So I have a bachelor's, master's, and PhD in industrial and systems engineering from UW-Madison. And my specialty is human factors, which is the health and well-being of people at work. And so I spent much of my career in academia running faculty development programs at UW-Madison, and then working in industry as a litigation consultant, so like an expert witness about who do you blame when something goes wrong and somebody is suing someone else. And I have to say that's a little dark, and that didn't fit me very well. But now I'm a consultant, and so I help leaders learn how to create health promoting work. And I also teach as adjunct faculty at the Milwaukee School of Engineering. So I teach job and organization design as well as research methods. So I'm excited to talk with you today about dream jobs, what yours is and what it might become, and how we might evolve them over time. So I want to start a little bit with introductions. I just introduced myself, and Madeline introduced DreamBank. I'd love to, if you could just put in the chat who you are, and maybe where you're from, and if there's something specific that you wanted to talk about today, because we have time together and I'd love to go in whatever directions you want to go in. So while you're doing that, I'll just say then we'll talk about dream jobs. I also wanted to talk about the future of work today. I'm wondering, Jennifer, thanks. Hi to you in Phoenix, and Jen in Madison. If you think of a dream job, what does that make you think of? Like if you had just a phrase in your mind of what a dream job actually would be, what is that? Hey, Ingrid, could you write it in the chat? We're not quite sure how to. Oh, Enoch's in Phoenix, fabulous. We're not sure how to turn the sound on. So if you could, Ingrid, if you could type it into the chat, that would be fantastic. Something that motivates and excites you, fantastic. That's a dream job. Flexible pay, something that makes you happy, little to no stress or in flow. Oh, that sounds good, doesn't it? Enjoying the work that you're doing what you love, being paid well, a stimulating challenge and growth opportunity that compensates well. All right. I like this idea of incubating, trying to figure out next steps coming from healthcare. Okay. Feeling motivated and having flexible hours. It's a big one, Jennifer. No sense of dread going into work. Used to be so busy, but now I'm bored. A dream job is IT developer, but there's a lot going on. My dream job is one that you want to go to every day. a job that feels meaningful and supports flexibility in other life goals. A dream job, something that ignites and gives passion, something that feels good and makes me feel like I'm making a positive impact. A job I enjoy completely, even if there are some bad days, a job that's fulfilling. And then Christina has some specific ideas: graphic designer, visual communication specialist, remote, ideally. And then I'm wanting party time or more flexible work so it can focus on family. So I guess that would be part-time, right? And more flexible work so I can focus on family, but better pay than part-time. A job where I feel fulfilled and purposeful while getting compensated, doing something that makes a difference, part-time, working with great and inspiring people. Oh, if your stomach hurts every time you go into work, you know that you're not in your dream job, that's for sure. I want to work with people that are supportive and be able to grow. Okay, so these are fantastic, and we are gonna go in this direction exactly and think more specifically about what a dream job is. So in my engineering brain, a dream job would meet my needs, and I love it that you folks are already describing and already aware of many of your needs. It's something that promotes your health over time, right? And also, I think we need to realize that dream jobs evolve over time. And so I love that you're already using language like incubating or considering or at a crossroads, because the dream job that we have perhaps at early on in our life wouldn't necessarily be a good fit at another point in our life, right? So you've already been doing this, some of you describing what your dream job is. So I appreciate that. I want to talk now about the needs that we're trying to get met. And you sound like a very self-aware group. And so please do ask questions in the chat or make comments in the chat. Madeline and I will both be trying to keep track of the chat. But I'm going to go kind of quickly through the needs, because my sense is with this group that you're quite well versed in what you need. But I just want to look at it from a couple different angles. So in case that sheds light on some needs that you haven't quite articulated for yourself yet. So we know that to be human is to have needs. All humans have needs. And the thing about work that I love so much is that work can help us meet those needs. And there's a question, this session is being recorded. And so I'll only use people's first names, and you can write what you like in the chat, but please do edit so that you feel safe and comfortable. All right. So I want to start with something that's probably very familiar to you folks. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, developed in 1943. The reason I love it so much is that it's so easy to think about and it's so easy to relate to. You, as a human, have physiological needs to just stay alive, right? So you need to breathe, you need to eat, you need to sleep, you need to do things that humans do just to stay alive. And then you need also to feel safe. And so there's a psychological safety piece of this, but there's also a physical safety piece of this. And so you want to have safety for yourself and safety for the people that you love. You want to have health. You want to feel like you are safe in your home or wherever it is that you stay. And then, of course, we want to all feel like we belong, and we all want to feel a sense of love in our life and different kinds of love. To be human is to have these needs. And we all need self-esteem. We all want confidence. We all want the respect of others. And we all want to grow, self-actualization. So this idea, a number of you mentioned this already in your dream job description, you wanted to be creative, spontaneous. You want to have this ability to grow as a human. And what I love about Maslow's hierarchy, it's not about if it's exactly correct, because all models have inaccuracies. They're modeling something very complicated. So all models are wrong, but some are useful. George Box from UW-Madison used to say that. He was the founder of the statistics department. All models are wrong, but some are useful. This is such a useful model because it helps explain people's behavior. So if you think about being at work and maybe, as some of you have, and I have in the past also, you've been laid off, or your role has been cut. And now we're back to the place where I feel maybe less safe in the world, and I need to make money in order to pay my bills. And so I might take the next job that helps me pay my bills, and I might feel grateful to have it, right? So if you threaten somebody's safety and their ability to function in the world, they're going to try to meet those needs, and they might feel really grateful to get hired. And then the more that they stabilize and the more they become used to then being able to pay their bills and feel safe in the world again, now they're going to want these other things. They want to feel good in the group. They want a sense of belonging in the group. They want to grow and feel self-esteem. They want to feel appreciated by other people. They want to further their skills and maybe move to another position where they can learn and grow more. And the thing that's so interesting about this is that when you talk to a supervisor who's like, well, I hired her 2 years ago and she was really happy in the role, and now she's not, and now she wants more. And the thing is that's always going to be true. People are always going to want more. People are going to want to fulfill more of their needs. But if you told me, so say I'm in this role and I'm feeling like it's maybe boring for me now, or I've mastered it and it doesn't have much left for me. But you tell me now they're going to have layoffs, I might actually want to keep this job, even though it isn't fulfilling, right? Just because I'm afraid that I might not be able to pay my bills if it goes away. So it's not that one of these is more important than the other. It's that when you threaten people's sense of stability and safety in the world, which are this bottom three here, people are going to try to preserve this and try to recreate this. And then once they feel somewhat stable here, they're going to try to do this too. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs is so helpful when we think about work, because in the best case scenario, work can help us with all of these needs. There's another less known theory of human needs that I really love, and especially love to think about in terms of work. So it's self-determination theory by DC and Ryan. So DC and Ryan talk about psychological well-being coming from a sense of autonomy. So feeling like you have agency in the world, like what you do matters, and that you have a role in shaping your life. Even though obviously we can't control everything, we want to feel like it matters what we choose. And then also we want to feel competent in our life. So we want to do things that we're good at, right? And a number of you mentioned having passion for something. You might also hear people talking about having a calling to do something, and it's usually a calling to do something that they have some skills at or some strengths in already, right? People want to feel competent. And then, of course, all humans are social and they want to be related to others. Even people as engineering and introverted as I am want to have a sense of relatedness with other people. We want to have positive social relationships. And DC and Ryan talk about designing environments then, not just work, but home environments, school environments, prison environments, societal environments, where we try to support people in meeting these needs instead of thwarting them. So we want to help people feel a sense of autonomy in their work. We want to help people experience competency and grow, and we want people to experience feeling connected to each other. And so when we think about the design of work, we want to keep those in mind. This is one of those handouts, it's hard to read on the screen, but it's in the 5 handouts that Madeline put the link to. So Madeline, would you mind putting the link back in the chat for people who have joined us. So reliable restorers are also about human needs. So this is from Edie Greenblatt's 2009 work. She, I think, is a kinesiologist, and she did her work at Harvard, and she was looking at what are the things that most humans feel rejuvenated by, right? And this isn't a laundry list, but under most conditions for most people, these things are enlivening. So obviously sleep. So we need people to get enough sleep, right? And we need people, oh, I hear the link doesn't work. So I'm going to let Madeline take care of that. So we want, of course, to get more than 7 hours per night of sleep because it affects everything about our health. It allows our parasympathetic nervous system to do its work. It affects everything about how we process information. So we want a job where we're allowed to get enough rest. So this has to do directly with workload, of course, and also work pace and shift work and things like that. All humans need some amount of sunlight, right? And so sunlight is something that's restorative. And this is something where you could think about, there are some people who really need to be in the fresh air a good amount of the day, and they might gravitate toward roles that are predominantly outside. And that's great. But for the rest of us, we still need sunlight. So we need windows. We need to be able to walk outside. We need to feel sun on our skin. To be human is to need these things, right? We also need to move. And so sitting in a chair for a majority of the day is not a good thing for humans. So we need some sort of movement during the day, or the freedom to move when we need to move. We need sensory integration. And this is one that I found super interesting when I first learned it, is that the brain finds it, I want to say, pleasurable and also calming to integrate the senses. So our brain wants to hear and see and smell and taste and touch. We want that full experience, and it's good for us to integrate those senses together. It's good for our mental health and our physiological health. There's also a sense called proprioception. So this is where you know where you are, as you're moving, right? So if you think about gymnasts or people who are athletes, probably have a very advanced sense of proprioception. And then the vestibular system, okay? So our balance and our coordination. So our bodies want these integrated sensory events. And I love, this is a direct quote from Greenblatt's book, Restore Yourself, on page 71. She says, the research on adult sensory needs has shown that whether you're an autistic child or an electrical engineer, your cognitive, emotional, and physical resources are improved when the amount and intensity of sensory input you get is properly balanced. That means fidgeting, playing video solitaire, pacing, thumb twiddling, whistling, and subconsciously rocking in that $500 desk chair are at least in part self-medicating actions that are most likely helping you to restore yourself in real time. So when you think about how we work in offices or in classrooms, and how we require people to sit still, be quiet, right? That goes against physiologically what we need to be doing to stay alert and to stay with a sense of energy in our bodies. So the more we can have meetings where we walk and talk, or have sensory input, having meetings literally outside where there's fresh air and sunlight, all of those things make work more enlivening. And then I know a number of you also mentioned flow already when you were describing your dream job. So this is Csikszentmihalyi's research from, I think, sometime in the 90s, right? Where you get into this headspace where you're absorbed in an activity for its own sake. So an athlete might call it being in the zone, or when you're working and time just flies by because you're so engaged, right? And so it's interesting that that can be so enlivening intellectually, and it can also be, I know for myself, if I get really caught up in something, thinking about it, and time flies by the time I stand up, my back might ache, right? So the thing that we want to ideally do is we want to integrate all of these things into our job. So like if I set a little timer so that I would move even while I'm in flow, then it might help the rest of my body too. So I'm just going to pause here for a minute and ask, do you have questions about these different kinds of needs that we're trying to meet? If you have questions, please write them in the chat. Okay, so then I want to just look at needs through one more lens here. A number of you are probably already, would I share about the sensory need real quick? Kia, can you tell me, did you have a question about the sensory integration? So many of these support why so many people want to work remotely. Yeah, that's right. I mean, people want to be able to take breaks when they want to. They want to open their windows or be near a window that can open, have a fan on. Some people listen to music. Some people walk around and do other things in between, right? Okay, so what did you say regarding the brain and pleasurability? So what we found in the research is that for a human to feel good, the brain has to be integrating information from all of the senses, which include the five senses we're used to thinking about: hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting, touching, and also these senses that we seldom think about that are about movement and our place in space. So it might be actually really helpful for you to sit in a rocking chair on your porch and do some work where you have the sun on your face, right? You have movement as your chair, you feel the breeze on your skin, and you hear children playing in the background. The brain finds integrating all of those senses like a soothing and positive experience. It gives us energy, right? And so if you think about the antithesis of this would be like solitary and confinement, where we isolate a human and they're in the dark, there's no hearing, there's no seeing, there's nothing to touch. And so that's a form of torture, right? And so what we want to do is we want to think about how can we work in ways that fit being human, that fit these needs, right? I hope that's helpful. Another framework, oh, perfect, I'm glad that was helpful. Another framework that we can think about is in 2022, just a couple years ago, our Surgeon General's office came out with a framework for workplace mental health and well-being. And if you go to my website, I have links to interviews that I'm doing with people about this framework, how they're implementing it in their workplace. But I just want to say that I think you could go to the Surgeon General's website and download the report about this and share it if you can with some folks that you work with, and see like, where are you? These are human needs too. And all of these human needs have to do with our health and well-being. So is our workplace centered on worker voice and equity? Do I feel safe, right? Protection from harm. Do I feel safe psychologically and physically? Do I feel secure in my role? Do I feel a sense of connection and community, belonging, social support? Do I feel like I have some autonomy and some flexibility that I can make the rest of my life work, right? Do I feel that what I do at work matters to other people? Do I have a sense that this is meaningful work and that there's dignity associated with this work, right? And what are the opportunities to grow in this place? Can I learn new things? Can I get a sense of accomplishment? So this is another way to look at what humans need at work, and all of these needs are specifically linked to human health, right? And so I highly recommend this is one of the handouts, but you can get this information for free on the Surgeon General's website. And I want to quickly just mention, there are a number of frameworks and theories about work itself. In addition to what was done in 2022, you'll notice this work has been going on for decades, right? We know what creates a good job. So the things, and this is Frederick Hertzberg's motivation hygiene theory, the things that we know about work is that if we want people to feel intrinsic motivation, which is what some of you were describing when you were saying, I feel like I want to go to work in the morning. I want to be glad to be going. I want to get up and feel excited. Well, these are the things that usually are associated with that sense, right? A feeling of that I'm recognized for what I do, a feeling of growth, a feeling of achievement, a feeling of responsibility, that I'm responsible for something that matters, a sense of advancement and challenge at work. So these things are the things that have been shown in the research that really motivate people. But at the same time, I want to say these other things, these parts of work are known to be associated with dissatisfaction. And the best you can do is kind of get dissatisfaction to zero. So if my work is compatible with my personal life, that's good, right? If I like my coworkers and then we get along well, that's really good. If I feel secure in my job, if I feel the status is appropriate, if I'm paid fairly and I like my benefits, if I like my supervisor and they're a good leader, if the policies and administrative practices in my organization are good or good enough, and if my working conditions, the ergonomics and the actual aesthetics of my working conditions are okay, then if this is all satisfactory, then I might have close to zero dissatisfaction. But the thing that gets tricky is that that says nothing about how much motivation a job might hold for me, right? Because if I don't feel these things, I still won't be motivated. So sometimes what happens, and I've worked a lot with people in healthcare, so I can relate to some of you who are talking about nursing or having come from healthcare. Sometimes what happens is that people say, that they're looking for something else, or they feel like they need to leave. And what happens is, what happens is you might get a pay bump, right? And that's nice, or you might be able to be working part from home, so it helps your personal life some, and that's nice. But if it doesn't change, if it doesn't change this, then you're not going to be any more motivated. So what Hertzberg found that is so important is that the things that lead to this motivation, this wanting to do it, this job that we love, aren't the same things that are associated with, shoot, I keep going the wrong direction, sorry. They're not the same things that are associated with lack of dissatisfaction. So those two things are actually on separate scales. So increasing somebody's salary might decrease their dissatisfaction, but it won't necessarily do anything to increase their motivation, right? But at the same time, I'm going to go back to Maslow now. If we're talking about money, and this is what's so tricky about money, is it could mean really any of these things, right? If I don't make enough money to pay my bills and feed my family and pay my mortgage, then I'm in trouble and I need more money. Just objectively, I need more money, and that can stabilize me. But if I'm making enough money and to pay for my life, and I'm dissatisfied with money, it might be more to do with, I feel that something's unfair. So maybe I'm a family medicine physician and I understand that the cardiac surgeons are making 2 or 3 times my salary. And so now talking about money is actually talking about esteem, right? So money is a tricky one. We definitely want, in our dream jobs, we want to have enough money to fund our lives and to keep ourselves safe and keep our family safe. But the money after that is sometimes it's unclear what the money is trying to solve. If it's trying to show appreciation, or if it's trying to give you opportunities to travel, right? It could be any of these things. So when people talk about money, I always have to ask more questions and ask them, what actually are they thinking the money is going to solve? So these are how I see human needs at work. And I'm wondering, when you think about your current position, what needs are being met or what needs aren't being met, right? And if you've already left a job and you're thinking about your dream job, what needs would your dream job meet? So what is it you're actually looking for? What needs are you trying to look for? So that's an open question. If you could take a moment and write that in the chat, that would be great. And a couple people have asked if the recording is going to be available. And yes, there will be a recording. Madeline will email that out to all of the people who signed up. Does anyone feel like sharing a little bit about needs? Financial. So, yep. So you've got something currently that meets your financial needs. And those, as a consultant, I can say that it's really stressful not knowing where your next paycheck's coming from, right? I can feel at times when I don't have enough work lined up, that it affects my health, it affects my anxiety level, right? So it's nothing to sneeze at. But there's not engagement, excitement, and drive, and that's what's in the dream job. Okay, so mental health. So yeah, sometimes your current position, Victoria, is the mental health need is being met or is not being met? Is not being met. Okay, so that's a huge factor, right? You have to look after yourself, and it's your job's impact on you. And then we're talking about working remotely or finding a way to coast into retirement in about 5 years. I do like the idea of coasting into retirement. That sounds appealing to me, although I don't know what that looks like. Current position is meeting growth, responsibility, and job challenge. Fabulous, fabulous. Currently meeting benefits, insurance for family, working from home, mostly working independent, no growth or raise, which feels like respect. So it's really good to be able to identify respect as an issue, because there might be other ways. If the organization can't afford to raise salaries, what other things can they do to show respect or to appreciate, right? Something more challenging where I can grow and use my education, but now I just need a job so I have income coming in. I totally understand that comment, right? So you need to get a job so you can pay your bills, and then you keep looking for the thing that has more needs that it can meet, right? Current position meets recognition and acknowledgement, but not advancement or financial gain. How it's a great place to work. So this is such a great example of you can have so many of the dissatisfiers addressed, right? So you have very little dissatisfying going on, right? And yet you still need to leave, right? It's a great place to work, but you still need to leave. Okay, it's cultural too, right? Working for large enterprise Indian firms is challenging for women. They don't care about all these things you're talking about. Yep. I think a lot of US companies don't care about a lot of the things I'm talking about too, right? So yeah, fabulous. Thank you everyone for sharing. So, and some of you are already talking about this, dream jobs also have to promote your own health, right? So you have to, in a dream job, you have to be concerned about your own health. What you don't want is to feel so passionate and so called that you work 24/7 and you work yourself into, an illness, right? Whether a mental illness or a physical illness. So you have to have a dream job where you think carefully, and I know you folks are already doing this, thinking about your own health and thinking about your family's health, right? So there are a number of, like I said, I've worked with a lot of people in healthcare, and a number of people feel called to be in healthcare or called to be in a spiritual role, or working with perhaps people who are suffering, either as a therapist or a person who might be helping people who are in palliative care. And it's literally a calling, and I feel a sense of calling for my own work as well. But you have to keep in mind that you can't keep making your best contributions if you're ill. And so some of the ways that we've organized healthcare or organized caring, or organized education, do people harm. And so this is going to be interesting as some of these big systems start to deteriorate and or they have been deteriorating, start to fall apart and have to be rebuilt. So what would it look like to be a nurse in a way that promoted your own health as well as your family's? So you worked shifts where you could still participate in your family dynamic in a way that makes you all feel good. You have enough energy when you get home where you can fully participate. You make enough money that you can help support your family. And also you can still be involved in your community, right? So I like Laura. So I like flexibility, working from home, and less stress in the current job. The pay is good, but it's not fulfilling and doesn't support the lifestyle I want. I want to have more creativity and purpose. So I love that you've got so much precision in what you see is already being fulfilled. And then you can start to move into, like, how would this look? What could I propose? Is there room here to grow this position or to grow in this organization in a way that's creative and feels purposeful, while also keeping in mind the health of yourself and your family, right? And I don't mean this to sound disrespectful, but I have seen some healthcare organizations really kind of capitalizing on the meaningfulness of the work, because there is no doubt that the work is meaningful. People need help. Educators find the same thing. Children need teachers, and it is meaningful and it is fulfilling on a lot of levels, especially if you feel called to it. But that can't be it. That can't be that you sacrifice yourself and you sacrifice your own family for these needs, because it's not sustainable, right? And I love Francine. Yeah, burnout is real. In the past, I had so much stress that my body literally shut down. I got shingles and mono at the age of 43 and was out of work for almost 2 months. I'm sorry, Francine. I wish I could say that I hadn't heard that story before, but unfortunately, it's more and more common. And it's so extreme, right? And the answer can't be to just keep telling people how necessary they are and giving them an app on their phone to talk to a therapist. You know, what we have to do is we have to change what we're asking of people. And you'll see this on the Surgeon General's site. 76% of US workers report at least one symptom of a mental health condition. 84% responded that workplace conditions have contributed to at least one mental health challenge. And 81% responded that they'd be looking for workplaces that support mental health in the future. So there's a sea change going on. And so our dream job has to be something that we can do for weeks, months, and years without doing ourselves harm. So to Francine's point, burnout, as defined by the World Health Organization, is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that's not been successfully managed. And I'm going to take issue with that last phrase there. It's characterized by 3 dimensions: feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, or feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's jobs, and reduced professional efficacy. So feeling like whatever it is you're doing, it doesn't even matter anymore. And I do take some issue with the way that the World Health Organization has defined burnout, because it's saying chronic workplace stress that's not been successfully managed. And I want to say employees shouldn't be the one to manage chronic workplace stress. That's the employer's job, right? So if you're chronically understaffed, if you have 3 nurses doing the work that should be done by 6 nurses, then burnout is going to happen. And it isn't any employee's fault. It's an organizational structural problem of chronic understaffing. So that's something we have to think about. And then you'll also hear some people in professions talking about moral injury. So feeling like um, you are injured because the way you're asked to work violates your own moral compass, your own conscience, right? So you are, because of the way you're asked to work, violating your own values. So you see this now, people in healthcare sometimes talking about this, that they know what they need to do for a patient. And I'm sure you see it in education, and you must see it in other professions as well. But they're being asked to work in ways that violate what they know needs to be done for the best outcome for the patient or the student. And when we get to a place, this work originally was done with veterans, people who had been in the service and as a soldier had done things that violated their own moral compass. It can lead to serious distress, depression, and suicidality. So if you're asked to do things in your job that violate your own ethical codes of conduct, that's something to be very, very careful about, to get out as soon as you can, knowing that you still have to pay your bills and take care of your family. But it does people harm. So this is one of your handouts. This is a flow chart that I made as an engineer, so it's very flowcharty, to describe to colleagues and to clients where different kinds of expertise come into play when we're talking about stress and strain. So as we're trying to think about how to keep people healthy at work, right? What do we think, how can we think about this? So in your handout, you'll see that there's a stressor here. So this is that first thing. So let's just call it workload, right? So there's a high amount of workload, and I'm going to filter it through my individual perception and hardiness. So I'm going to interpret what's happening to me based on my genetic makeup and based on my upbringing. And I filter what's happening through that filter, and my body and mind respond. So I have psychological and physiological responses. So I might have an elevated heart rate. I might have tension in my muscles. I might feel my breath getting shallow. And if that goes on for enough time, I might end up with what engineer like me would call acute strain. So maybe perhaps a tension headache. And so this is something that if I have a tension headache, right, then if it goes on for weeks and months, I might end up with migraine or a migraine pattern. Weeks, months, and years of acute strain can lead to chronic mental and physical health outcomes. So feeling anxiety on particular days, if I am continually exposed to this stressor and I'm continually anxious, then over weeks, months, and years, I can end up with an anxiety disorder, right? Something that's chronic. So this recovery time is really important if we want to try to break up. I've had this experience and I feel it, the strain of it, and now I need to recover from it. But if I don't have the recovery time, if every day is as stressful as the previous day, I end up with a higher probability of a chronic health outcome. It could be a depressed immune system. It could be musculoskeletal problems. It could be low fertility. It could be migraines, depression, any of the things that are related to the stress hormone response. And now, after I have a chronic health outcome, then we start to talk about resiliency. Now we're starting to talk about, well, how can I help myself heal from this, right? And so there's resiliency here. In engineering, we talk about resiliency as what happens after something is deformed. So the reason these are color-coded is because our wellness experts, our friends in wellness, are in the green, right? So they can help us with our hardiness and our perception. They can help us with resiliency. Our friends in the medical professions are in the orange, right? They can help us with perhaps biofeedback, or they can give us an over-the-counter something for acute pain, or they can prescribe or do some surgical interventions or sort of long-term treatment options for chronic conditions. The pink box is kind of a catch-all here. The pink box is the coping mechanisms that each of us has developed over a lifetime. So when we talk about coping, there can be positive coping, right? So these are the things like, I have a really hard day and I'm feeling very stressed, and so I call a friend and we meet at the gym and we exercise together, and then we go have some tea and we talk. And I would call that a helpful coping mechanism, because that can actually then help with my hardiness, right? It can help me improve my overall hardiness. But it's also true that we all have less helpful coping mechanisms. Like, I might get a pint of ice cream on my way home and sit in front of the television and watch Project Runway or watch reruns of Modern Family. And that's my coping mechanism. And that actually, eating the ice cream and sitting alone for hours watching television would be perhaps decreasing my hardiness and increasing a sense of social isolation, if it possibly. Right. So we all have a mixed bag of things that we know to do to feel better. It might be drinking, it might be getting high, it might be smoking cigarettes, or it could be hanging out with friends or going to a movie and laughing, right? So, I mean, like, we all have a mixed bag of these. So this is the individual's response. And then these blue are where engineers like myself come in. So, and you can too, and you can start to look at what are the stressors that we're looking at here, and what kind of recovery time do people need from those stressors. So for instance, if I work in a nonprofit that's working with people who are not housed, and clients come in and they're agitated and perhaps suffering from a number of different situations or perhaps medical conditions, and I find that in interacting with one of the clients is very stressful, it gets very heightened very quickly. What kind of break do I need? What kind of recovery time do I need after an event like that? So it's not uncommon for organizations to say, oh, you had a trauma on Tuesday, so we're going to take Wednesday and we're going to have the therapist come in and talk to everybody as a group for an hour, and that's it, right? So that's enough. But that might be good, but it's probably not enough, right? So because what we need is, we need to break up the amount of time people are spending in this very tense, like, reaction strained time. So engineers like myself help organizations figure out, if I work in the ER, what might that look like versus working in a dermatology clinic? You're both in a medical situation, but the stressors are very different, and the kinds of stress and the pace of work is very different. And so what kind of recovery time during the workday does a person need, right? So yeah, I'll just stop there for a minute. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this? So my implication here is, if you're thinking about your dream job, no job is perfect. Every single job has stressors. There's not going to be a point in life where there are no stressors, that there's not going to be a job where there are no stressors. But you want to think about, what are those stressors and how can I recover from them and keep myself healthy, right? Okay. Meditation, absolutely. So do you have LinkedIn? Do you mean, am I on LinkedIn? I am on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to post my LinkedIn. It's Katherine Sanders, PhD. And I can post that link at the end of the session today, no worries. So meditation sounds corny, but for me, it helped bring me closer to myself. It's not corny, it's actually a proven method. And I've been learning meditation over the years from my spiritual counselor, and she's fantastic. And I think she's even on this call today. The key was realizing the workplace talk about self-improvement wasn't going to happen because work had meetings about it. Yep. But you need to set the time for yourself. I think that's fabulous. I walk a lot in the forest, get kayaking, and love to be with my dog. I love that. And I think that actually, that self-regulation is one of the reasons so many people want to work remotely. Is I love to just between meetings go pet my cat or sit outside on my porch, right? And it's a way for me to recover from whatever was going on in work, right? I love it. If jobs came with a list of the stressors, challenges, and things that are unpleasant so that they could be compared, that would be fabulous, right? But you can imagine some of them, but just by the nature of the work, right? And yeah, it helps you recover and be present. That's fantastic. So, okay. So I mentioned this just a moment ago, but I want to call it out specifically too, because it's going to come back in a moment. One of the most important things to look for in your dream job is a level of autonomy, and so you can self-regulate, because as your needs and capacities and situations change, you need to be able to change to take care of yourself and your family. And so the dream job, no matter what it is, whatever its title is, if it's an IT job or it's a designer job or whatever, one of the things to look for is how much autonomy could I have for when life changes? Because we know that life changes and our needs change and our capacities change. So I might have one kind of capacity as I enter a job, and I'm fully focused on it, and I'm totally dedicated to getting up to speed and learning and joining the group. But then somebody I love gets sick. And whether or not I need to take care of them at home, just having somebody I love being ill is going to reduce my capacity to do this job now. And so one of the things I would want you to think about when you're thinking about your next dream job is, how can I ask how they take people's situations, how flexible they can be when people's situations change, right? And can they give me examples of that? Because this is going to be one of the most important things, right? I love it, Beth. So I was going in the same direction. Are there questions to ask that help identify the autonomy in the interview process? So I would just ask people, usually I've noticed employers use the word flexibility quite a bit. So they want employees to be flexible, but then it might be nice to ask them, how is the workplace flexible as people's careers change, as their families change? Like when you have a young family, you have different kind of rhythm that you need versus being empty nesters versus maybe having parents who need care, right? So you might want to ask them to give examples of how over time, as employees' needs change, how does their work system, how is it able to respond to people? Because what we want ideally is for the work system to respond to humans, right? Not just humans feeding the work system. I'm not sure how we're doing on time here, but I think I want to talk for only another 15 minutes and then open up for a more open conversation for the last 15 minutes. So I'm not sure I'm going to go very far into this, but Karasik's job strain model from the 1970s is also a really nice way to think about health at work. And what he found is he looked at the design of jobs, right? And he put the jobs into quadrants. These aren't people, these are jobs. So you can have a high demand, low control job, a low demand, low control job, a high control, low demand job, and a high control, high demand job. And the point here is that if we're asking a lot of people, so over here in this column, and those people don't have control over resources. So Karasik was looking at something quite specific here, not just like, can I work from home, right? This is control over resources. So control over timelines, control over staffing levels, control over budget, right? If I give people a high amount of control to hire people, change the timeline, get new skills, and I ask a lot of them, guess what? People step up and they want to do those jobs, right? So they're fully supportive, demanding roles, and people want to do them, right? Oh, thank you. Elaine added my LinkedIn profile. I appreciate that, Elaine. Thank you. But what happens is if we ask a lot of people and we give them low amounts of control over resources, people get sick. And this is what some of you were talking about earlier, you know, the psychological strain quickly morphs into physical outcomes like immune system disorders or mono or, you know, reproductive issues. So the thing to look for in the dream job is autonomy, not just can I work from home, but like how well resourced is this role, right? And if I don't have the resources to do this job, then as much as I feel a calling for it, this job is eventually going to make me sick. Right? So this is another handout, and it's a long list of things that an engineer like myself looks at in terms of the stressors. So when you were thinking earlier about the list of stressors, this might be something that you could look at, right? And you could say, well, if I think about the job that I'm interviewing for, is it sufficiently resourced? Does it have the right number of staff and the budget and the skills and the equipment? So is it a place that is struggling for resources? And if so, that would be a flag that it's pretty likely that this is going to be stressful in here. And that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it, because maybe your role would help turn things around and maybe you could find a way to get more resources. You know, you find a lot of nonprofits operating in this space, right? So they don't have the sufficient resources. And so when you have insufficient resources and you can't get sufficient resources, then the only thing you can do is really to decrease the scope of work. So you decrease the number of people that you're serving, or you decrease what the mission statement is to fit the resources that you have. Otherwise, you find that people quit, right? That you can't keep staff. So workload is something you want to look at. You want to think about the amount of autonomy that you have. You want to think about how fast or how high pressure the work system is, whether or not the people working together get along with each other or respect each other. You want to think about some of the things that you've already been talking about. Can I grow in this job? You know, how meaningful is this job? How much responsibility? How much can I grow? You might not know about the management style until you get in. Sometimes people that you interview with will give you little clues about management style. They'll talk kind of in code about the people who used to work here or something like that, kind of implying that we have a lot of turnover, and maybe it's because of how the leaders interact with people. If you're going to be in the role of a caregiver, meaning you're going to be a nurse or a physician or a therapist, it is itself, this role of being a caregiver is itself a stressor. So those people, and we need them, and I'm so glad people still want to be caregivers, but you have to be extra careful to get into a situation that is sufficiently resourced, and extra careful to try to find ways to recover from the stresses, right? And so there are a number of you were mentioning helpful coping mechanisms, which is great, but some things are structural. And so obviously correct staffing levels are super important, but you could also think about something like Schwartz rounds. So this is something that they do in healthcare. It's a formal process, and it gets people together to talk about what they're living as a caregiver in a caregiving environment. And so it's essentially like taking care of each other, and it's done during the workday, and it's part of your job to go have these conversations with each other. And so I think this is one of the ways we want to think about how are we taking care of ourselves during the day, not just what happens when we go home at night. If you're taking a job that's monitored, that is itself a stressor. So that's something to keep in mind. More and more jobs where people work remotely, they have you set up a camera so that they can see everything you're doing, or they monitor your keystrokes, or they track it through your computer. And that itself is a stressor. So that's something to keep in mind. And then, of course, things about role conflict or role ambiguity. What kind of work schedule would fit for you? My mother worked the third shift as an ICU nurse my whole childhood. She worked from 11 to 7, and she loved it because she loved being alone with the patients and not having so many families coming in, right? So all of these stressors, every job is going to have some of them, but what you just want to do is figure out, like, what are the stressors and what can I do to care for myself? And when you're in a position of influence, what can I do to care for other people in our group? So I want to ask you here as we take a small break here, how is your current job, or if you think about your dream job, affecting your health? So for those of you who maybe have financial stability but not enough growth or excitement, I mean, how is your health? Is your health good anyway? Because that would be nice, right? Or if you're thinking about your dream job, what health promoting features would you like it to have? Would you like to have part of it be outside, or have it be in an organization where people have flexibility to have meetings while they walk, or everybody works remotely and comes together occasionally? Like, what kinds of things would promote your health? Or, maybe this would be a place that has daycare so that you wouldn't have to worry about your child. You could bring them to work with you, and they would be in daycare when you're there, right? So health promoting can look a lot of different ways. So if you have any ideas, I'd love to see what you're thinking. More stability, more money, my old boss back instead of the new one each year, and my current job would be cool. Oh, I get it. It's so I want to say disconcerting when somebody who was your boss that you really got along with is replaced, right? It changes everything. Okay. Would like your dream job to have support for looking after my elderly father. Oh gosh. Yeah, I see that. Would working school day hours be a health promoting feature? Sure. I'd like to be at home with my kiddos at the end of the day. Absolutely. So that's the point. Yeah, health promoting looks different for everybody, right? And so that's why the dream job has to have flexibility in the organization, so that what works for one person isn't, made to fit everyone else, that everyone can have their version as their life changes. Your dream job would allow schedule flexibility so that you can take a long break, more than 45 minutes during the workday, to spend time working out or going for long walks. Oh, that's nice too. Yeah. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, thank you, everybody. Those are really great. And so as you're pointing out, oh, uh, having unlimited PTO would be amazing. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Positive feedback and appreciation promotes my health, and my boss, co-facilitator, provides this frequently. He also offers me opportunities to grow and take on more responsibility. That's really great. That sounds like a great partnership. Um, I've had clenching, jaw tension, headaches throughout. I have to say my job does have resources that I've started to tap into, but I think we don't get time to meet with coworkers, and it feels like the two teams are treated differently. Respect issues. I guess you helped me identify a pretty big issue. Oh, good. Longer lunches too would help. Yeah. Um, this is tangential, but I've done a little bit of work with K-12 teacher health. Not as much as I would like to, but a little bit through a health insurer that was insuring primary school or PK-12 teachers in this state. And one of the most common maladies for school teachers are urinary tract infections, just because they're left alone. They can't leave their classes of, 25 kids alone. And there's only one adult in the room. And so they don't have time to use the restroom. And many times they work through lunch. And so you see UTIs for teachers a lot, as well as, of course, anxiety, depression, autoimmune issues, all the things that go along with stress. But it's so important to be able to take a break when you need to take a break. And then your dream job, if you think back to, your dream job when you first came out of school or when you were a child, your dream job changes as you change and as your life changes and as your family changes. So as some of you were saying, you might want the same schedule as your children who are in school, or you might need to come home and take care of one of your parents, right? And so if you think about dream jobs from your past and what they might look like, and, I think of mine, I used to have like this vague notion in high school, I was going to have a briefcase and I was going to go to a high rise, right? And it was vague. I didn't know what I did there during the day, but I must have been watching enough television that it looked it looked appealing. But then eventually I did work in a big city and I had a job in a high rise, and it was not a good fit for me. It wasn't what I wanted. So dream jobs change over time. So as you think about your dream job and how you've been evolving it, I think that's really interesting, because if you feel safe in your workplace, maybe you can talk to them a little bit about what used to work for you right when you first came to that organization. And now as your life is changing, how your needs are changing for your job. And if you don't feel safe doing that, I totally understand. And that's where we start to look about, what the next job would look like and what the next job, interview questions would be. So do people have flexibility to be involved with their families during the day? What would that look like? Could that work here? And I want to just say a couple words. You hear a lot about AI, more and more and more about AI, and we're going to hear more and more about AI. And as AI is increasingly coming into our work systems, it might be worthwhile starting to think about its potential impact on your current job, right? And on your dream job, right? So I'm going to show, this is a work system model that engineers like myself use to think about work. And so every work system has people and it has tasks that those people are asked to do, which we bundle into jobs, right? We work in a social environment as well as a physical environment, and the organization has reward structures and policies and procedures and the way it hires, and also the technologies that we ask people to use or work with. And those technologies can be equipment, but they can also be ideas, like Lean is a technology. And when we're talking about AI coming in, so when AI enters, the point of this system is that each of these affects the other. So AI is technology, of course, but its impact is going to be across the whole system. So it's going to affect policies, procedures, how we hire. It's going to affect the social environments, the physical environments. It's going to affect the jobs that we ask people to do versus the jobs we give the technology to do. And it's going to affect how people experience work and get their needs met. And it's going to affect the kind of skills people need. And I want everyone to start to think about what this might look like in my industry, whatever industry you're in, what might this look like? And for some of you, it might already be happening. You might see AI replacing humans. There's a lot of talk about this, and that's possible in some fields, right? But I think more likely you're going to see AI lowering autonomy, meaning this whole thing about self-regulation, this whole thing about being able to decide when to take a break and how to care for myself, being able to have autonomy over resources. I think it's more likely that AI might be taking the place of some human decision making. And that part is the part that worries me most. I mean, this is really traumatic for people in the moment. Like if you're in the trucking long distance trucking industry and your job goes away and you have to be reskilled and enter an entirely different kind of job, that is a huge change. And I don't want to decrease the seriousness of that, but I think this is going to be much more prevalent. I think you're going to see people wanting to trust the decision-making of AI over the decision-making of humans. And that part really worries me because I think it also will decrease social connection, meaning the machine might be telling you what to do and you might be more isolated from coworkers because the machine is telling everybody what to do as opposed to as a group figuring out together. I think there's also a possibility it might increase the pace of work and increase the workload on humans while de-skilling jobs. And so it's not that AI has to do this, but I think if it is implemented in a way that is without intention to preserve human health, I think these are some of the more likely outcomes, at least in the short term. So I want you to think about, as you're thinking about your dream job, how might AI be affecting that industry already? And what does that mean you need to look for and ask for to take care of yourself and to look after yourself? Autonomy and social connection are two of the top things humans need for physical and mental well-being. And we talked about them a few times in this talk today. So if I leave you with anything regarding AI, I want to leave you with looking for, how do I have autonomy in this role? How can I get more autonomy in this role? And what are my social connections in this role? Because without those things, it doesn't take long for someone to get ill. So does anybody have AI currently affecting their job, or do they see AI affecting their dream job? You see AI coming into healthcare already. And I think that could be good in some ways and also dangerous in some ways. So, all right. Well, if AI isn't really on top of your mind right now, oh, here we go. AI coming into IT, but hasn't yet impacted my job, which is QA testing yet. Yep. Yep. I know somebody who has their own business designing websites, and they see AI like replacing them. So they're already changing into a different field from website design. AI is actually allowing me to have time to accomplish the tasks I'm being asked to do. I feel it's helped me in my role to meet expectations. That's fantastic. That's really that's a great outcome. I'm glad to hear that. AI is being talked about a lot at my job, but it hasn't broken in as a major tool. AI might look like magic, but under the hood, it's only as good as the queries of the people using it. That may change in the long run, but bottom line, if you're good at asking questions, you've got AI handled. Yeah, I mean, AI is like a big bucket, right? It can mean like a chat bot writing social media posts for you, which might take away some mundane tasks. Or it might replace people in your group who used to do that a majority of their time. Or it can be an expert system, or it can be like something that's reading radiology films and giving advice to radiologists. So it can mean a whole bunch of different things, right? Not seeing it yet affect program management. All right. Or if you're in the contact center or service desk, you need to quickly look at other options. Those are already being changed. Yeah. So so this is like call centers, Brenda. You're saying like call centers are being replaced by AI systems. Yeah, call centers. Yeah. All right. Yeah. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I don't feel like AI is advanced enough to take care of all of my queries. Mostly I want to talk to another human, right? So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. But in terms of your dream job, I hope that you keep in mind having enough autonomy, right, to take care of yourself and enough social connection. Fast food is starting to be affected. That's right. Yeah. Jobs that some people really relied on now are being replaced with AI. So if there is a description that you feel like sharing about your dream job, to try to tie all of this together, I'd love to see it. There we go. I think my dream job would be involve something where the AI deals with trivial tasks rather than being used for tasks that require complex decision making. I get it. One of the things, Eli, that I think of with respect to your statement here is I used to do some work with integrative medicine physicians, and they're usually given the most complex cases, the cases that can't be handled or haven't successfully handled by any of the specialties, right? And what it turned out to be, though, is that every single case was very complex. So people coming with multiple comorbidities. And so then it would be a whole day of the hardest problems with no patients that are just there because they needed a physical. Or so essentially what it does is, if AI takes care of all mundane tasks, some of the tasks that we have during our day are actually recovery time. So like walking over to make photocopies is a little bit of movement and gives me a chance to say hi to people in the office and maybe have a conversation with somebody while I'm making photocopies. But if I take every rest break away and I'm left only with the hardest cases, it might make the job really difficult. So I just want to say, not that you're wrong, Eli, but just keep that idea of when is the recovery time. If everything is the hardest problem, then when will I rest? All right, and I'm working closely with companies I can help with the human versus AI and the call centers and service desk environments. I'm looking at software and product companies to help with my expertise. Very nice, very nice. I'm glad to hear that, Brenda, that somebody's doing that work. So I'm looking at the time here. So we've got 10 minutes. I'd love to hear what you're all thinking about as we end today's session. So did you find something specific to help you with your dream job, I hope, or is there something else that you're thinking about at the end of today? Feels like a much more 3D way of looking at the dream job. Oh, good. Oh, I'm so glad you're going to share it with your team and your boss. So please feel free to share the handouts. And as I said, Madeline's going to be sending a link to the video. So I'm glad, Jennifer, that you can share it. That's fabulous. Oh, thank you, Brenda. I appreciate that.
If
Thank you,
anyone
Kia.
has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I know that Katherine did a fabulous job sharing, answering questions as they came up throughout the session. So if you have any outstanding, oh, the link for the handouts, I did add it a few times. It is a WeTransfer link. Let me just snag that again, and I'll just put it in the chat one more time just so everyone has it. But it's a WeTransfer, and so you'll just click on that, and then when you're looking at your computer screen, it's on the upper left-hand corner, and you'll just click download. But there is that. If anyone has any questions, we'll stay on for another minute or two. But if not, then we'll let you all go out and enjoy maybe a little bit, take a 2-minute leg stretch before you hop on to your next meeting. I'm not seeing
Or
any.
go out into the sunshine if it's
Yes,
sunny by you. Yeah, get some air.
wonderful.
And Eli, I love your comment about times mundane tasks could be replaced with socialization or taking extended breaks. I agree, unless the industrial engineers sort of like me come near you, and then what they're going to see is they're going to see slack in a system, which of course we do need slack in our systems, but it's really tempting for productivity people to try to take it out. So that's the thing I worry about. But I think you're right that it has the possibility of being used beautifully. So thank you, Elaine. So glad to see you here today. And okay, Victoria says the link's still having some trouble, but when Madeline, when the link to the video comes out, will it also have another link to the handouts?
It will.
Okay,
So,
good.
this is my first time using WeTransfer, so,
It seemed to work for some people, but not for everybody.
perfect. Well, I will I will be uploading the video, and so you'll be getting the email tomorrow. And so I'll just send it through the DreamBank mailbox, and we will have the documents where people can just download straight, just drag and drop. I'll have them attached to the email. So be looking for my email tomorrow, and they'll have the link with the YouTube and the link to the YouTube video recording, and then it will also have a survey response, which we always love your feedback to make our events better. And then we'll also have the attachments. But I haven't seen any questions. But thank you, everyone. I will give you all some time back, but thank you all so much. And then until next time, friends.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. And thank you, Madeline.
Bye.